Well, good afternoon. It is a beautiful day in Seattle. It's just gorgeous. The sun is shining, a great spring day, and I am thrilled today to welcome you to today's Expert Authors Unplugged call. Again, my name is Karen Lynn Marr, and I'm the owner of LegacyONE Authors, and my guest today is author Wayne Ottum. Wayne has written 2 books. The first one is called Create Intimacy. It's a book meant to help couples create deep and meaningful relationships. And he's also written a second book called Live from Strength. And that's a book that helps people discover their unique gifts and the power within themselves to take their life to the next level. So, Wayne, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Karen Lynn. I do have to make one correction. The pronunciation of my last name is Autumn, just like the season.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wayne. Thank you for that correction. Well, before we get into the guts of our conversation, let me just share with y'all my vision for these calls. I created this series of calls that I have a couple of times a month because I wanted to showcase and give visibility to new authors. But more importantly, I wanted to respond to a vast amount of questions that I receive from aspiring authors to understand the process and journey of writing. So many of you who are listening to this are hungry to learn from other authors who have successfully gone through the process. So I decided to start interviewing authors to help them highlight their success, give them some visibility, and also an opportunity to share their journey with others. In the big picture, I really wanted to start a conversation about the incredibly powerful journey of authorship. And my hope is that over time, this ongoing conversation that we're creating will inspire all of us to discover that deep sense of authorship in ourselves, but mostly for the people who are kind of, considering it, that, you too can fulfill your dream of writing a book. In my business, LegacyONE Authors, I work with successful men and women to heighten their professional credibility and visibility through authorship. Most of them have developed and acquired a pretty amazing body of knowledge throughout their careers and want some help distilling that expertise into a book so that they can expand their sphere of influence in the world. And in my work with authors, I discovered that there are 5 common obstacles that we all face when we write a book, and I call them the 5 fatal blocks to authorship, and they relate to our mindset. How do we think, and what's our point of view about writing and authorship? Also, having a purpose and a real clarified purpose about why they want to write and what it is we all want to achieve and accomplish because of the writing that we do. Having a plan, a real concrete plan to follow, having accountability along the way, and then also having a plan for promoting our books. And when we take care of these obstacles as they come up, we are very successful. So I'm on a mission to guide aspiring authors to engage with these blocks because so far, everybody that I've talked to talk about how they are part of the writing journey. And in the conversations that we have, we learn how to stack those blocks in our favor so that we use them to understand ourselves as an author and what we want to accomplish. We also have been able to develop some tools to learn the craft of writing and authorship, and then we also propel ourselves along and move forward in a publishing journey. So these obstacles aren't going away, so let's embrace them and use them. So my hope is that in these calls, talking with authors who have faced the blocks head on, that we'll provide some tools and inspiration so each of us can turn these blocks into stepping stones along our journey and use them well. So with that being said, let's get right into the conversation with Wayne. So Wayne is president and founder of Ottum Enterprises and has over 3 decades of experience in the design, development, and delivery of personal management, organizational, and employee development programs that are focused on business and individual growth. So again, Wayne, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Karen Lynn. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
Perfect. Well, first off, tell us about your books and what your purpose has been for writing.
Well, the first book I wrote, which has actually been now recently retitled Live from Strength, the purpose for writing that was really to get my consulting process out of my head. What I found that I needed, because of the way I learn and because of the way I process information, that I best develop my processes by writing it out. And I needed to express that and get those thoughts out of my head, which when I'm in front of someone or talking with someone in the consulting arena, I can say fairly well, but I needed to get that process down on paper. And so I first started writing simply to do just that, get those thoughts out of my head. I kind of started by writing articles or blogs, and then I ended up seeing that there was something connected with all of these, and that then became the book.
Fabulous. You know, there are a lot of people who that is what they say to me, that I have all this information in my head, help me get it down on paper, and what ends up is they end up having a consulting practice because of it. They get clear about what they're doing and what they want to do in the world in terms of helping other people. So that's fabulous.
That's actually part of what I do as a consultant, is help people realize that the knowledge and information that they have is a unique perspective on the world, and that unique perspective has value. Oftentimes, people develop years of experience like I did, and then they ask the question, well, doesn't everybody know that? and the answer is no. We go through this process of accumulating all of this information, and we kind of think, well, isn't that common knowledge? And it isn't. And what's not common is your approach to that. So I really felt it was important to get those unique thoughts out of my head so that I could then more effectively articulate that in my marketing and in my practice.
Fabulous. So really what if you could boil it down to, you used writing for clarity.
That's exactly right. As a matter of fact, in taking some notes and preparing for today, that's a word that I wrote down.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that clarity was the purpose for writing at least the first book, Live from Strength. The second book had a much different purpose. I've been in practice for some time, and when I met my wife, we wanted to create and maintain the intimacy and romance in our relationship. And through that process of trying to discover tools and resources that were out there, we quickly realized that what I do in my practice applies to relationships, that clarity of focus and direction and those types of things. And so we felt we had a unique approach to looking at relationships, and that's where Create Intimacy in as little as 8 seconds a day came out. It came through my wife and my journey to discover the tools and resources out there to help us keep the intimacy, romance, and passion alive in our relationship.
Fabulous. I know that I have read most of that book and find it just incredibly helpful, and just so a lot of simple things, but then in the day-to-day just living, it's so easy to get away from just.
Yeah, and that's where the whole 8 seconds comes in. Is that most people can find 8 seconds, and it really does just take 8 seconds to create an intimate moment.
Yes, yes. Wayne, when you think about your writing, and you've been doing it for quite a while now, what has been your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
The two biggest challenges that I face are finding dedicated time to write. As an active practitioner and meeting with clients, I need focus time where I can get in the flow, and when I do, the information comes out. But trying to get in an hour here or 15 minutes there doesn't work for me. So it was really finding dedicated time, and frankly, I had to get away. I had to go away for a weekend and just write, and I was able to pound out most of the books. The second challenge I have is in editing. I can't tell you how many times I thought I was done.
Yes.
And then reviewing the book and finding that there's still more to write. There's holes, there's gaps, there's better ways to say it. And for that, I have to give my wife a great deal of credit. She's my chief editor, and she is very, very helpful in thinking through and finding the gaps and looking for more effective ways to communicate.
So that neutral third eye from a person who's not embroiled in the words and creation and putting those words down on paper is critically important in your process.
Yeah, and there's also the challenge of voice. The Live from Strength, I was a little bit more adamant that it needed to come from my voice because it's the process that I developed. It's trademarked, and I needed to feel that the book spoke from my voice. Mm-hmm. Where when we developed Create Intimacy, we really needed to have a more neutral voice, one that spoke to both the men and women, and one that had a more carefully developed voice that was neutral.
Mm-hmm. So how did that go? How did you navigate that with your wife and you working, your wife as your editor? Can you speak to that process a little bit? Because I think that's a really fascinating process that all writers have to deal with.
Yeah, and it was unique in that we had had the personal relationship as well. Because of who I am, it was more challenging because I felt it was written okay the first time, and so I had to learn to be more flexible. I had to learn to accept the edits not as criticism but as suggestions, and then realize that in the end, especially with the Live from Strength book, with my name on it, I was going to be the final editor and either accept those changes or modify them. But for the most part, if I looked at it neutrally, and that's the thing that I had to do, was get to this point of evaluating that feedback not as criticism, but as input, and then I evaluate the input based from a more neutral standpoint. I found it went a lot better. Okay,
perfect. How did you make that shift? I mean, can you share a bit with the listeners some guidance about that? Because I mean, we all face that. It's like, oh my gosh, this person is being critical. But how do you turn it into a discernment process of what fits and what are you incorporating without taking it personally?
Well, the thing that I did was remember what I try to teach other consultants. A lot of my clients are consultants, and so I'm consulting to consultants on how to be a consultant. Mm-hmm. And what I try to say to them is that you don't own it, meaning that the information that you provide to your clients is theirs, not yours. and you can't take it personally if they don't accept it, hook, line, and sinker. And so I had to take that. I had to be reminded of that this is just information, and now I need to find the most effective way to communicate that information to the widest, broadest audience. And so I had to be open to the feedback, again, not as criticism, but as input, and then evaluate that from a neutral spot. So I had to remind myself of the things that I teach. I like to say I had to eat my own dog food.
All right. Yeah, writing is, kind of, what am I trying to say here? It's humbling. It's a humbling process because we get so connected to our words and what we want to say, and then when other people, but we're putting it out there for other people to respond to. So it's pretty much, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're laying your heart out there. I mean, you're putting yourself out there, and you're saying, "This is me," in probably the most. You're putting it out there for the world to see, and you're always going to find critics.
Yes. Yes.
And so you have to, in the end, you have to feel that what is written comes in your voice, and be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. What you might have already answered this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What's been your greatest learning throughout the entire process, from having an idea and starting to write your manuscript all the way through now to your marketing of your book?
That I can do it. That I'm capable, not only capable of doing it, but that my ideas ring true. If you keep your ideas a secret, nobody can criticize them, but nobody can enjoy them either. Once you get your ideas out there, somebody's going to criticize them, but the idea is a heck of a lot more people are going to enjoy them. And that's what I found, is when I created the clarity of message through the process of writing, my ability to communicate my message got sharper, and therefore more people found the message of value.
Right. So with your clarity that came from writing and capturing your process, you're able to give it to the world.
Yeah.
And you can influence people, which is what you want to do, as opposed to keeping it secret and keeping yourself safe from criticism.
Right. Yeah, and it's just being okay that the criticism is a natural part of it, but it doesn't discredit it.
All right, I love that. Criticism doesn't discredit the value of the information.
Right.
Beautiful. Wayne, how has writing and publishing a book benefited you personally and professionally?
I've kind of skirted. I've said these things somewhat already, but it starts with clarity of what my services are and how I create value, and a clarity of message. From a professional standpoint, if I look at, I'm celebrating my 10th year in business as a solopreneur, and that's pretty darn good for anyone. But the quality of the results that I produce today with my clients is significantly improved over what it was 10 years ago. And I give a lot of credit to the writing process, to getting my thoughts down on paper, out of my head, as I said. It doesn't necessarily have to be on paper. I mean, I think other people could do that through doing training development or other methodologies. But that clarity of organization and thought process and the words that you say at this moment to create consistency, etc., that's the biggest professional advantage or learning that I got out of this. from a personal standpoint, I've always thought that it, I didn't write a book to sell books.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a book to essentially validate my own belief that I'm an expert at what I do. And so from a personal standpoint, it's helped me to personally validate that I am. And people do see you differently as a published author than when you're not.
Right, right. Do you feel as if did they treat you differently? Do you speak a little bit more about that?
Well, it's almost like it's an instant credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
You've written a book, and so that kind of credibility just simply is there, rather than having to. I still believe that you must create the credibility through the quality of your services. Don't get me wrong.
Right, right.
But at the start of any relationship, there is a heightened level of credibility and respect given someone who is an author on the subject.
Yeah, great. So the book in itself doesn't negate the need to deliver quality as the utmost way to build credibility. It just helps in the beginning. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, and I'd say it the other way around is now that you're a published author, I think people have a heightened expectation. And that's okay too.
Yes.
And that's okay too.
Right. I love that. Thank you. What tips would you share about how to promote yourself as an author as well as a new book?
Well, I have to say that that's probably one of the places where I struggle the most is in promotion. I'm by nature not someone who's self-promoting.
Mm-hmm.
I do most of my marketing and networking through personal relationships, and so I let who I am speak for who I am, as opposed to getting out and saying, well, you ought to read my book, here, buy my book. I have an aversion to the idea of being a pitch man, and so it's been a struggle for me to differentiate the concept of the book as the vehicle to my ideas, rather as the book as the thing that I'm trying to market.
Right.
And once I made that mental shift that I'm not selling books, I'm selling ideas, and the book is just one place where you can find the ideas, I was able to overcome a lot of the resistance to a lot of the marketing. And so what we're doing is some of the basic stuff, social media marketing. I'm getting out and doing a lot of speaking engagements, trying to speak wherever I can, always carry a few books with me. And as I said before, I'm not trying to sell books. I am trying to provide value in my consulting services, and letting the book be one of the mechanisms to develop that credibility with my client.
Right, and I think that's for people, experts in their field, having a book, that is the purpose of the book. You're talking very clearly about my perspective on helping people get that clarity, get understanding about how you serve others, and improve your own processes and your own sense of confidence and your own sense of that you're an expert, and step into it and then go out in the world. It's not necessarily about selling the book, it's selling the ideas and that you've devoted your life to creating and helping people with. Yeah.
Yeah, I passionately believe in the ideas in the book. Mm-hmm. And so that's the point of view and the attitude that I take.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know that one of the ways that you're marketing your book is that you have a book launch coming up. You want to talk about that?
We do. right here in Kirkland, where I live and work, is a fabulous bookstore called Park Place Books, and they have agreed to host our book launch party and 10th anniversary, and it is May 17th. That's Saturday, May 17th, from 3 to 6 p.m. And I invite any of your listeners to come and if you come to buy a book, great. Love to have you do that. Just come and help us celebrate 10 years in business. Browse this beautiful little store and help out Rebecca and Mary there at Park Place Books. We'd love to have you.
And that is May 17th from 3 to 6?
3 to 6 p.m., yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Adult beverages and nibbles will be provided.
Wonderful. That's
all
great.
Free of charge.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be very fun.
I am too. It's going to be fun.
What should aspiring authors know about the life of an author and what it takes to successfully, get those thoughts down on paper?
Well, on that, I guess I would turn a little bit to once again my methodology, and that is there's no right answer to that question. There's only the answer that's right for you. Mm-hmm. If you look at the way you're naturally motivated and you look at the way that you naturally process information and what your unique gifts are, those should be the foundation on which you build your process for writing. And when I aligned myself to those things that were right for me, it made the process so much easier. So for me, I did outlines. Mm-hmm. I put down major topics, organized the major topics into what I would call a presentation flow. I mean, what mm-hmm. comes first, what comes next, etc. Then try to, with each of those major topics, outline a purpose for each of those subjects. Then I just took little bits. I could write that little bit. But when I tried to think about writing a book from beginning to end, it was too big of a chunk. Without knowing where do you start, what do you do next. And you could also jump around, meaning that you could write some stuff at the beginning of the book. You could write some stuff at the end of the book. You have a discovery with a client, and you say, oh, that's a great thing that I need to capture in this section, and you do that. You don't really have to think about beginning to end writing. You can write that and then come back and look at it in its total. And I also feel that you need to write the introduction last. Because if you try to write the introduction without having thought through all the concepts, then you're constantly changing the introduction as you change the contents.
Right. I love that. And I actually work with clients where we'll start with, I ask them to just write a letter to their audience, the people they want to read the book, so that they get themselves out of thinking that they're writing a book. They're just writing to the people they want to read the book, and that's a place to start. And then we do an outline, and then come back and like you said, the very last thing, rewrite an introduction based on what you thought you wanted, and then it also helps you realize if you have included everything. Is there anything missing? You want to add something or take something away? Mm-hmm. So, pretty fun to look at it that way, to get out of the mode of, well, I have to start at the beginning of the book and work my way through, because that's just not how it works.
Well, yeah, that's when you have ideas about something that might be at the end of the book. If you say, well, I can't get there until I get there, that ideas flow. I mean, right, exactly. I think most writers say they don't really know where these ideas come from. They just come to them, and they flow. And by trying to do it, from beginning to end, you don't allow that natural flow to occur.
Right. Have you had the experience, Wayne, of writing something and then going back and looking at it and wondering where that came from?
Oh, all the time. You know,
who wrote that?
Yeah, I mean, it's also the feeling of going back and reading what you've written and going, God, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah,
and I think that, you know, as humbly as possible. But you just, once you get this out, you have a perspective to look back at it and realize that you have really good information to give to the world, and it becomes a very empowering thing.
Mhm. Yes. Oh, I totally agree. Are you planning to read from your book at your book launch? You know,
that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. So you bring up something that I'll give some consideration to.
Well, I would encourage you to, spend, about 10 minutes reading something from it.
Yeah, that will give me something to think about with regard to what passage I might find most appropriate for that setting.
Right. How can people listening be in touch with you and especially get a copy of your book besides attending the book launch?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to go to our website, livefromstrength.com/books, and our books are listed there. And for our listeners here, to celebrate our 10th anniversary year, we're giving 10% off on all the books. And so if you buy through that mechanism, we have a special code that you can enter at time of purchase that will give you 10% off the price.
Okay. Is that code on your website or?
Nope. I'm going to give that code right now.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's kind of a funky little code, so people will have to take a moment to write it down, so I'm going to say it a couple of times.
Okay, good.
It is N as in Nancy, F as in Frank, A as in Apple, V as in Victor, the number 8, U as an umbrella, D as dog, the number 4.
Okay, and are all those lowercase?
It doesn't matter whether they're lower or uppercase.
Okay,
either
great.
will work. But it's NFAV 8UD4.
Okay, perfect. And just one more time.
NFAV 8UD4.
Okay, perfect.
So that's livefromstrength.com/books, and then use the code to get 10% off. But you can always find us on Amazon.com. If you just go to Amazon.com and put in my last name, Ottum, my books come right up, and there they are.
Okay, wonderful.
Unfortunately, on Amazon, you don't get the discount.
Right, exactly. So before we sign off here, I have one last question for you. And it's your opportunity to give some advice and encouragement and some consultation to people on the call and people who want to read a book. So what would be your biggest piece of advice and encouragement that you would tell them?
I thought about this as I was preparing for this, and I know this sounds trite, but just do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if you've got an idea for a book, just start.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say is what I alluded to earlier, is that there's no one right way to do it.
Right.
What might work for me might not work for you. So by discovering and really focusing on the unique gifts that you have and working from that place as a center, the likelihood of success goes up, but more importantly, you'll be more fulfilled in that success, in that process. And coincidentally, that's the basis of the book, Live from Strength. It is discover those unique gifts and then live and work from that place. And I really believe that will help anybody who's writing a book do it in a way that feels authentic for them, doing it in a process that is not, someone else's methodology, here are my 7 easy steps to, business success kind of thing, that works for them. Because why? Because that work for them uniquely. Mm-hmm. So there's no formula. There's only the formula that's right for you.
There you have it. Perfect. And I would agree totally with you that just start and make that commitment. Say, yes, I'm doing this, and this is how I work well, and just make the commitment and keep going. So thank you.
It was. By the way, it was 5 years from the time I started writing my first word on the book until Live from Strength was published.
Oh, fabulous! That is wonderful. Yeah. And could it have been shorter for you?
Well, we released it under a different title and then completely rewrote it 2 years later. So there's always room for improvement as you go back. But it took 3 years it could have been shorter, probably, and it was probably because both of us had jobs that kept us from being able to focus on it. Go away for a weekend or two or a couple of weeks, pound out a book, and then work on editing. And it's also because of that trial and error editing process that we had to discover for ourselves until we got it down.
Wonderful. So it's all perfect. The timing is perfect. So congratulations. I'm looking forward to celebrating with you on the 17th.
Thank you, Karen Lynn. I really appreciate it.
Okay, and thank you all for the people who are on the call. Thank you for joining us. The next one will be on May 14th. I'll be interviewing a woman named Michelle Sism, and she's got a great perspective on business and business development. And so I'll look forward to talking with you all in another couple weeks. Thank you for joining us.